In the cold silence of space, the Starship Orion glided through the Black Sea between stars. Inside, white lights hummed softly across a spotless medical bay. Silver instruments lined the walls, screens blinked in green, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and machine oil. Dr. Varel, chief medic of the ship, stood at his station reviewing a glowing data pad. He was a Xeran, thin, tall, with pale blue skin and large black eyes that looked ultraviolet. To most of the crew, Varel was calm, professional, and never surprised by anything. He had treated plasma burns, radiation sickness, and even an android who swallowed a screwdriver. But today, something new waited in his medbay, something called a human. The first human to ever travel aboard the Orion. His name was Jack Carter, a ship mechanic from Earth. He was broad-shouldered, with rough hands and a lazy grin that never seemed to go away. He liked old music, spicy food, and fixing things that everyone else called broken. To the alien crew, Jack was both fascinating and confusing. He laughed too loudly, ate too much, and didn't seem to fear anything, not even the cold vacuum of space. That morning, Jack had walked into the medical bay holding his stomach. "Morning, Doc," he said cheerfully, even though his face looked pale. "I think I ate something weird." Vril tilted his head. "Describe your discomfort." Jack rubbed his stomach. "Feels like fire, but normal. Probably just that chili sauce I made last night." The medic frowned. "You cooked it yourself?" Jack grinned. "Of course. Can't trust the replicators. Their food tastes like wet cardboard." Vril didn't understand half of what Jack said, but he nodded politely. He motioned to the scanner bed. "Lie down, please. We will perform a routine internal scan." Jack shrugged, climbed up, and stretched out. "Do your thing, Doc." The scanner slid over him with a quiet hum. Green lights moved across his body as lines of data began to stream across Varel's monitor. The medic watched carefully, expecting to see something simple. A mild stomach irritation, maybe a strange bacteria. But within seconds, his calm expression began to fade. The numbers made no sense. Varel blinked and ran the scan again. Then again. He adjusted the calibration, thinking the device was malfunctioning. But every reading said the same thing. The acid inside the human's stomach had a corrosive level higher than most industrial cleaners used to polish the ship's outer hull. He whispered softly in disbelief. This cannot be right." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong?" Varel didn't answer. His fingers danced across the console, switching between biocharts and chemical readings. The molecular breakdown showed hydrogen ions strong enough to dissolve synthetic metal. "By the stars," Varel muttered, his tendrils twitching nervously. "What's that mean, Doc?" Jack asked, sitting up a little. Varel turned slowly. His face showed something rare, fear. "Human. Your stomach acid could dissolve the hull plating of this vessel." Jack blinked. Then he laughed. "You're kidding, right? It's just stomach acid. Everyone's got it." "No," Varel said, voice trembling slightly. "No other known species has anything so dangerous inside them. Do you not understand? If even a small drop escaped containment, it could burn through our medbay floor." Jack chuckled again, completely calm. "Guess that explains why I never get food poisoning." Varel stared, unsure whether the human was joking or insane. "And you experience no internal damage from this?" "Course not," Jack said, scratching his chin. "Been this way my whole life. Humans are tough, Doc. Built to handle bad food and worse situations." The medic could not decide which was more shocking, the chemical power of the acid, or the human's casual tone about carrying a substance that could melt Starship alloys. Varel called for his assistant, a small alien named Retek, who hurried over with wide silver eyes. "Run a verification test on this data," Varel ordered. Now Retek checked the monitor and gasped. "Doctor, it's real. His digestive fluid levels are off the charts." Varel felt a chill creep up his spine. No armor plating, no containment field, yet he holds this inside his body safely. Jack waved a hand. "Hey Doc, relax. I've been eating hot wings since I was 10. "This isn't new," Retek whispered. "How is he alive?" Varel had no answer. His mind raced through every biology text known in the Galactic Medical Network. No creature in the archives matched these readings. "Perhaps humans evolved to survive their own toxins," Retek said softly. Jack smirked. "We just call it having lunch." The medic sighed, unsure whether to laugh or panic. He turned to his console again, capturing a small data sample for later research. The numbers glowed in red. proof that the human digestive system could produce a corrosive acid stronger than anything on record. Outside the medbay window, stars drifted by in silence, unaware that inside this small ship, an alien doctor had just discovered that the friendly human mechanic eating spicy food carried enough biological firepower to melt the walls around him. Varel looked up, meeting Jack's eyes. Humanity truly is extraordinary, Jack grinned. We get that a lot. The medic leaned back, taking a deep breath. The galaxy had many mysteries, but now he was certain of one thing. Humans were not fragile creatures of soft flesh and bone. They were walking contradictions of danger and charm. And as the ship's systems hummed quietly around them, Varel realized something chilling. If one human stomach could dissolve a starship's hull, what else were they capable of? Jack burped softly and said, "So Doc, we good? Can I go grab lunch now?" Varel nearly dropped his datapad. Lunch? Jack laughed as he walked out, leaving the medic staring after him, speechless. For the first time in his long career, Dr. Varel wasn't sure if his patient was harmless, or the most dangerous thing aboard the Orion. The alarm lights blinked softly in the corridor of the Orion. Somewhere deep inside the ship, a hum of whispers spread like a quiet wave. The human had done something strange again. Dr. Varel stood frozen in the center of the medical bay, his hands still trembling over the datapad. The screen in front of him showed one clear, impossible number. Acid level, 12.9 pH negative. That wasn't supposed to exist. It was a corrosive force stronger than any biological sample ever recorded. He turned to his assistant, Retech, who was still staring at the screen with wide eyes. "Recheck the calibration," Varel ordered, trying to sound calm. "Perhaps the system is malfunctioning." "I already did, Doctor," Retech stammered. 3 times. "The readings are consistent." Varel exhaled slowly, but his throat felt dry. He looked over at the human, who was now sitting casually on the edge of the bed, swinging his legs and eating something from a small silver pack. "What are you consuming?" Varel asked sharply. Jack looked up with a grin. "Beef jerky. Want some?" The doctor blinked, unsure what a beef jerky was, but certain it sounded dangerous. "Human, your internal acid could destroy this ship's hull. And you are eating?" Jack chewed another piece and shrugged. "Doc, if I stopped eating every time my stomach felt weird, I'd starve." Retech stepped back, whispering nervously. "It's true. His readings could breach the containment deck if exposed." "Enough," Varel snapped. "No one leaves this room. We need to isolate the human until we understand this." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You're acting like I'm radioactive." "Worse," Varel muttered under his breath. Moments later, the door hissed open and 2 security officers entered, both armed with containment field rifles. The taller one, a reptilian named Korshak, glanced between the medics and the human. "Report says you've got a biological hazard?" Varel sighed. "Not a hazard yet. But his stomach acid could, in theory, melt through our main plating, if it were to escape his body." Korshak's eyes widened. "You're saying he's carrying a weapon inside him?" Jack held up his hands. "Hey now, it's just lunch, fellas." "Don't overreact," the second guard whispered. "He looks calm for someone so lethal," Jack smirked. "It's a human thing." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. Rumors were already spreading through the ship. By now, the entire engineering deck knew that the human mechanic had acid inside him strong enough to melt Starship metal. Some said it was a weapon. Others claimed humans had built-in defense systems, biological bombs just waiting to explode. Within an hour, the med bay was surrounded by curious eyes. Scientists from the research division gathered near the door, whispering theories. A few brave ones peered through the glass window to get a look at Jack, the man who smiled while holding more destructive potential than a plasma grenade. Inside, Dr. Varel struggled to maintain order. He prepared a small containment dish for testing. "Human Jack Carter," he said carefully, "I will need a micro-sample of your gastric fluid." Jack frowned. "You want me to puke for science?" Retech blinked. "If possible, yes," Jack groaned, but agreed. "Fine, but if I ruin your equipment, that's on you." With mild effort, he followed instructions. Varel sealed the small sample inside a reinforced capsule and placed it beneath a microshield. Everyone leaned closer as the medic lowered a sliver of hull metal into the dish. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the metal began to hiss. Smoke curled upward, the surface bubbling as if dipped in fire. Within moments, the alloy was gone, completely dissolved. A stunned silence filled the room. Impossible, whispered Retek. This acid breaks molecular bonds. Korshak took a step back. And that's inside him? Jack looked amused. Told you, Doc, strong stomach. Verl was speechless. He ran multiple scans comparing the acid's composition with known industrial cleaners. None came close. Even the strongest synthetic solvents used for deep space maintenance were weaker. What sat inside the human's body was a perfect, self-contained, self-healing corrosive system, something nature itself had built and balanced. The medic looked up, his voice soft. You carry destruction within you, and survive it effortlessly. Jack leaned back, crossing his arms. Nah, I carry a love for good food. The destruction part's just a side effect. Outside the medbay window, more crew members had gathered. Some whispered that humans must be a warlike species. Others thought they were biological experiments gone wrong. But what frightened them most wasn't the acid. It was the human's calm, easy smile. Korshak finally spoke. Doctor, should we confine him? Vrel hesitated. No, he's stable. Dangerous, yes, but not intentionally. Still, we must keep him under observation. Jack chuckled. Observation, huh? You guys really need to relax. It's not like I'm going to breathe acid on your walls. But his joke only made everyone more nervous. Vrel turned to his assistant. Seal the sample in quantum storage. No one touches it without clearance. Retek nodded quickly, locking the container away. Then, silence. Only the faint hum of machines filled the room. The doctor stared at the human one more time, trying to understand how something so dangerous could look so ordinary. Jack noticed the stare. You're thinking real hard, Doc. I am, Vrel admitted. I have studied hundreds of species. None have what you possess. Your body is both weapon and shield. How does your kind survive itself? Jack grinned. Guess we're just built different. As the alien crew looked at him, awe and fear mixed in their eyes. Vrel knew this was only the beginning. The Galactic Council would want to hear of this. Scientists would come from across the stars to study the humans. And somewhere in that quiet moment he realized something chilling. If this was what humans called normal, then the universe had no idea what kind of creatures they truly were. Jack leaned back, stretching. So, Doc, what now? Vrel's voice was quiet, almost respectful. Now, human Jack, we begin to understand your kind. And outside the medbay, as whispers spread through the ship's corridors, a new legend began forming. The story of the human whose stomach could melt stars. The Aurian floated in silence, its metallic skin glowing faintly against the stars. But inside, the silence was gone. The corridors buzzed with whispers. Everywhere Vrel walked, he could hear it. The human melted a hull plate. His stomach acid eats metal. He smiled while doing it. Rumors traveled faster than light. What started as quiet curiosity had turned into fear wrapped in fascination. For most of the crew, humans were new and strange, but now they seemed dangerous. Dr. Vrel tried to ignore the noise as he returned to the medbay. He needed to confirm one last thing about the human's biology before reporting to command. But mostly, he needed to face the question haunting his mind since the test. How could a creature carry destruction inside and still laugh about it? When he stepped into the medbay, he found Jack sitting comfortably on the bed, humming to himself. His jacket was off, his sleeves rolled up, and he was fixing a broken medical tool, just because he was bored. Vrel stopped at the door. You are repairing my equipment without permission. Jack looked up and grinned. You're welcome. That was not a compliment. Jack shrugged. Still, it works better now. He handed the device to Vrel, who hesitated before taking it. True enough, the scanner lit up smoothly when he pressed it. Somehow, the human had improved it using nothing but spare wires and sheer instinct. Vrel sighed. You continue to surprise me, human Jack. Jack leaned back. You're still calling me human like it's a title. You can just call me Jack, Doc. Vrel folded his arms. Names carry meaning, Jack, and your species carries danger. Jack laughed softly. Danger's relative. Where I come from, stomach acid's just part of breakfast. The doctor blinked. You jest, yet your humor hides truth. Your body can contain acid stronger than the cleaning agents used for battle cruisers. How do you survive this? Jack rubbed his neck. Guess evolution had a weird sense of humor. We're built to handle rough stuff. Volcanoes, snowstorms, bad coffee, you name it. Vrel's tendrils twitched. And you consume spicy food willingly, even after knowing this? Jack smiled proudly. Spice is life. The alien medic sat in silence for a moment, studying him. Do you not fear yourself? Jack looked thoughtful, his tone calm but honest. Doc, on Earth we learn early that life's messy. Sometimes you get hurt, sometimes you fall, sometimes you eat something that could melt a spoon. But we adapt. We get stronger every time. Outside the medbay glass, a few crew members were still peering in. One of them whispered to another, "He's laughing again, after melting metal." Another shushed them quickly. Jack noticed and waved cheerfully. The aliens froze and quickly disappeared around the corner. He chuckled. You'd think I'm some kind of monster. Vrel tilted his head. To them, you are unknown. Unknown things inspire fear. Jack shrugged. Fair. But we're not so bad once you get to know us. Just don't take our food away. Vrel tried to understand this calmness. Every other species he'd met would have panicked if told their body could destroy Starship materials. But Jack sat there as if it was just another Tuesday. He decided to dig deeper. Jack, may I ask, do all humans have such an resilience? Jack grinned. Pretty much. Some more than others. We got folks who climb frozen mountains for fun. Some swim with sharks just to say they did it. My grandma used to eat peppers that could melt paint. Vrel's mouth fell slightly open. By choice? Yep. She said pain builds character. The medic leaned back, both amazed and unsettled. I begin to understand why your kind survived so many planetary hazards. You do not fear pain. You chase it. Jack chuckled. Guess that's one way to put it. Vrel turned serious again. Still, your existence is extraordinary. The Galactic Council will not believe this without proof. Good thing you've got melted metal as evidence, Jack said, tapping his temple. But Doc, you don't need to worry, I'm not going to burn through your floors. Vrel exhaled slowly. I appreciate that, though I will require that you refrain from consuming anything volatile. Define volatile, Jack said, raising an eyebrow. Anything labeled as a fire hazard, Jack smirked. Then you might want to confiscate my hot sauce. Vrel looked alarmed. You carry incendiary liquids? Jack laughed so hard he had to wipe tears from his eyes. Relax, Doc. It's just food. You really gotta stop taking humans so literally. Despite himself, Vrel almost smiled. You are an impossible creature, Jack Carter. Thanks. I get that a lot. A quiet moment followed. The hum of machines filled the air again, steady and calm. Vrel studied the human one last time, realizing something profound. Humanity's danger wasn't just in their biology, it was in their attitude. They faced fear the way others faced the sunrise, with curiosity and a joke ready on their lips. Jack, Vrel said softly, your calmness, it unsettles many aboard this ship. Jack looked up. Because I'm not scared? Yes. They expect fear. You give them laughter instead. Jack thought for a second. Doc, when you've lived on a planet that tries to kill you every day, storms, quakes, wild animals, you learn that being scared doesn't help. You fix what's broken. You laugh when you can. You eat when the food's hot. Vrel nodded slowly. Perhaps that is why your kind thrives where others would perish. Jack stood up, stretching. Or maybe we're just too stubborn to quit. As he headed toward the door, the medic called out, Jack, one last thing. Jack turned. Yeah? If your acid truly could dissolve our hull, how have you not harmed yourself? Jack smiled. Because nature gave us balance, Doc. We're dangerous, but only when we need to be. The doors hissed open and Jack walked out, whistling softly as though nothing had happened. Vrel stood in the quiet med bay, the echo of that simple statement hanging in the air. He looked down at his notes and wrote a final line before closing the report. The human remains calm even when faced with his own chaos. Perhaps that calm is the most dangerous thing of all. And as the Orion drifted through the silent stars, every crew member whispered one thought. If this is what a human calls normal, what happens when they're truly angry? The ship Orion was never quiet again after that day. What began as rumor had turned into legend, one that spread from the engine bay to the captain's quarters. The story changed with every retelling. Some said the human carried liquid fire inside his stomach. Others swore he'd melted the med bay floor. A few even whispered he was part machine, built by some secret Terran experiment. No one knew the truth, but everyone agreed on one thing: the human was dangerous. Dr. Vrel didn't like the fear that now followed Jack Carter down every corridor. Crew members avoided him. The cafeteria went silent when he entered. Some pretended to check their wrist comms, others simply stood and left. Jack noticed, of course, but he only smiled like he always did. On the third rotation after the acid incident, Varel received a message from the bridge. Medical bay lockdown requested, human under review. He sighed. It was only a matter of time. When Jack arrived that morning, he looked relaxed, chewing on something as usual. "Morning, Doc, you look tense. Want a snack?" Vrel blinked. "No. And human, I must ask, why are you always eating?" Jack grinned. "Because it keeps me calm." The medic tilted his head. "Even now? When most of the crew fears you?" Jack shrugged. "If I stopped doing normal things just because people got scared, I'd never get anything done." Before Vrel could answer, the med bay door slid open. Captain Solira entered, her silver uniform gleaming under the white light. Her expression was cold, official. Behind her stood two security officers. "Dr. Varel," she said, "we've reviewed your report. The council requests a containment demonstration." Varel frowned. "A demonstration? The data is clear." "They want proof," Solira said. Then she turned to Jack. "Mr. Carter, you will cooperate." Jack leaned back, calm as ever. "Sure thing, Captain. Long as no one tries to cut me open." The captain didn't smile. "You are to be escorted to Lab Chamber 3. The med bay fell silent. Even the machines seemed to hum quieter. Jack looked at Vrel and sighed. "Guess I'm the main act again." Scene change. Lab Chamber 3. The walls shimmered with containment fields, and half the ship's science team had gathered behind observation glass. Jack stood in the center, wearing his usual work clothes and that same easy smile that made aliens both nervous and curious. Vrel adjusted his instruments. "Jack, please remain still. We are repeating the acid sample test under controlled conditions." Jack nodded. "Whatever you say, Doc." The medic extracted a minuscule sample of stomach fluid and carefully placed it inside a reinforced capsule. The crowd behind the glass leaned forward as the drop hit the metal plate. Once again, the same sound filled the room, a faint hiss like air escaping a wound. Smoke rose, metal sizzled. Within moments it was gone, dissolved. A gasp spread through the observation deck. One voice whispered, "He carries this inside him all the time." Another answered, "How does he live?" Jack stood quietly, watching Vrel clean up the sample. He seemed completely at peace. Then Captain Solira's voice came through the intercom. "Human Jack Carter, are you aware that your biology poses a risk to this vessel?" Jack looked up at the glass. "Risk's a funny word, Captain. My biology's been like this since I was born. Never burned through a floor yet." "You could if you wished," she pressed. Jack smiled faintly. "Doc, tell her the truth. I can't control it. It's just how we're made." Vrel nodded slowly. "The acid exists naturally within his body, contained perfectly by internal systems. He has no control over it, but it causes no harm." The captain crossed her arms. "Still, it means humans can carry within them a weapon that needs no trigger." Jack's tone stayed calm. "We don't see it as a weapon, Captain. It's just lunch insurance." The alien stared blankly, not understanding the joke. Jack sighed. Look, I'm not here to melt your ship. I fix engines, not start wars. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavier than gravity. Then, faintly, someone behind the glass muttered, "If one human can do this, imagine what 1,000 could." That was when fear truly took root. Jack felt it in the way their eyes changed, not with curiosity, but with quiet alarm. He'd seen that look before. On Earth, it was the same look people gave wild animals at the zoo. Fascination and caution all mixed together. He turned to Viral and said softly, "You're thinking it too, aren't you?" Viral hesitated. "I am thinking that your species may be more complex than we believed." Jack chuckled. "That's the polite way to say it." The captain stepped forward again. "Until further notice, you are restricted to engineering and your quarters. For safety." Jack's grin didn't fade. "Safety for me, or for you?" No one answered. Later that night, the corridors of the Orion were dark, lit only by soft blue light. Burrell stood at his desk, watching the day's recordings. The acid test, the captain's orders, Jack's calm reaction. It all replayed before him. He wrote, slowly in his log, "The human remains calm under threat, unbothered by isolation. The crew fears him, yet he shows no aggression. Instead, he reacts with humor, as if fear itself cannot touch him." He paused, thinking. "Perhaps," he whispered, "that is what makes them dangerous." A soft knock came at the door. When it opened, Jack stood there holding 2 cups. "Brought coffee. Thought you'd need it." Vrel blinked. "You should be confined." Jack smiled. "Yeah, but I figured no one would stop me. They're too scared." He handed the doctor a cup and sat down beside him. Vrel stared at the steam rising from the cup. "Do you not care that they fear you?" Jack shrugged. "I care, but fear's normal. Give it time. They'll see I'm not a monster, just a guy who eats hot sauce." Vrel looked at him thoughtfully. "You are either the bravest being I've ever met, or the most reckless." Jack raised his cup. "Maybe both." They sat in silence, 2 life forms from opposite ends of the galaxy, one filled with quiet fear, the other with quiet peace. And in that silence, Varel realized something profound. Humanity didn't conquer fear. They carried it, smiled at it, and kept walking. The next morning, the Orion felt heavier, not by gravity, but by tension. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew. The human was being studied, watched, measured. Dr. Varel stood in the med bay again, reviewing the captain's latest order. "Run a full biochemical experiment. Document the human's internal stability." He hated that word, an experiment. Jack wasn't a lab creature. He was a person. Yet the Galactic Council demanded answers, and the Orion would provide them. Vrel sighed and glanced toward the isolation chamber. Inside, behind the clear glass wall, sat Jack Carter, calm, relaxed, and somehow still chewing something. "Human," Vrel said through the intercom, "please refrain from eating during observation." Jack smirked. "Doc, you ever try science on an empty stomach?" Vrel pinched the bridge of his nose. "No, and I would prefer not to." Jack leaned back in the chair, boots up, eyes half-lidded. "Then we're on the same page." Retek, Varel's assistant, entered carrying a tray of instruments that glowed faintly blue. "Doctor, preparations are ready. Shall we begin?" Varel nodded reluctantly. "Yes, begin Phase 1. Phase 1. Temperature stress. Test Retek adjusted the chamber controls, and the air around Jack shimmered. The temperature rose slowly, 40, 45, 50 degrees Celsius. The heat sensors beeped softly. Jack didn't move. He simply took off his jacket. "Nice, feels like summer." The temperature climbed to 60, then 70. "Human, are you in discomfort?" Varel asked. Jack grinned. "You ever heard of something called a sauna?" Varel frowned. "Is that a weapon?" Jack laughed. "Not yet." After a few minutes, the chamber cooled again. The readings showed steady vitals, no signs of strain. Retech whispered, "He tolerates heat beyond standard safe levels. Remarkable." Vrel noted it silently, though inside he felt uneasy. There was nothing natural about such endurance. Phase 2. Acidity control. Next came the test everyone feared. Vrel approached the console slowly, hesitating before speaking. "Jack, this will require us to measure the acid production cycle directly. You may feel mild discomfort." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Discomfort's fine, Doc. Just don't blow me up." The medic's fingers hovered above the controls. "We will isolate micro-samples at intervals." Jack leaned back. "You're the boss." The machine hummed to life. Tiny sensors mapped every movement within the human digestive tract. On the monitor, glowing waves of chemical activity appeared, stable, rhythmic, but powerful enough to make the alien medics stare in disbelief. Retech gasped. "Doctor, his acid levels spike with food intake. Look, each increase correlates perfectly with the material density." Vrel's eyes widened. "He adjusts naturally. The human body modulates chemical strength based on what it consumes." Jack yawned. "Yeah, that's just digestion, buddy." "Digestion?" Vrel repeated. "You mean this reaction is normal?" "Yep," Jack said casually. "My body knows what to do. It's been doing it since before your species invented shoes." Retech whispered, "Unbelievable. His biology doesn't fight against the acid, it works with it." The machine beeped softly as data filled the screens. The acid strength rose, then dropped again as Jack's system self-corrected. "It's like fire that never burns its owner," Vrel murmured. Jack smiled faintly. "Guess you could say humans learned to live with fire a long time ago." Phase 3. Resistance test. The final stage was the most dangerous. A controlled microburst of artificial toxin would be introduced to Jack's system to test his body's resistance. Vrel hesitated before authorizing it. "Are you sure, human? We can cancel this." Jack chuckled. "Doc, I've had worse hangovers. Let's roll." Vrel sighed. "Very well. Begin Phase 3. A tiny mist filled the chamber, invisible to the eye but potent enough to cause cell disruption in most species. The sensors blinked red, tracking the human's vitals. Heart rate steady. Oxygen flow steady. Acid levels rising sharply. Retech blinked. "Doctor, his stomach acid is responding to the toxin." Vrel leaned forward. "It's neutralizing it." On the monitor, the graphs shifted. The toxin's chemical markers dropped rapidly, completely dissolved in under 30 seconds. Jack stretched and smiled. "Is it over? I didn't even feel anything." Retech nearly dropped his tablet. "He metabolized a Class 3 corrosive in seconds. Impossible," Vrel whispered, almost in awe. "Not impossible, human." He turned toward the observation deck where Captain Salira and the Science Council were watching. "You see? Their biology does not resist poison, it consumes it. They convert threat into fuel." Jack raised his hand. "So does that mean I can leave now?" "I've got an engine core to fix." The captain looked shaken. "Human. Your species is either blessed or cursed." Jack smirked. "We just call it being alive." Later that day, Vrel sat in his office, data streaming across his monitor. He replayed the footage again and again. The heat tolerance, the acid reaction, the toxin neutralization. Each experiment proved something the galaxy wasn't ready for. Humans weren't fragile. They were adaptive chaos wrapped in skin. He wrote in his log, "They do not merely survive danger. They absorb it, learn from it." Laugh at it, a soft knock came. The door opened and Jack stepped in holding a cup of coffee. "Hey, Doc, heard you were still working." "You really should get some sleep." Vrel looked up. "I should be studying you." Jack grinned. "You'll go crazy if you try." The doctor smiled faintly. "I think I already have." Jack sat down across from him. "So what did your fancy machines say about me?" Vrel looked him in the eye. "They say you are the most dangerous thing in this ship. And also the most harmless." Jack nodded, amused. "That's humanity in a nutshell." As he left the room, Vrel stared at the empty doorway and whispered, "Perhaps the galaxy will never truly understand them." Outside, the stars glimmered silently, and somewhere among them, one human mechanic walked with the calm of a storm that had learned to smile. The stars outside the Orion burned softly, endless and calm. Inside, however, calm was the one thing missing. For the past 3 days, whispers of the human experiment had consumed the ship. No matter where Dr. Varel walked, engineering deck, mess hall, even the observation lounge, he could hear it. They said the human neutralized a toxin. He melted a hull plate and smiled while doing it. If one can do that, imagine a fleet of them. The stories had grown, twisting like vines in the dark. To the crew, Jack Carter was no longer just a mechanic. He was something else. Varel tried to stay detached, to be a scientist first, but even he could not deny the truth. The data from the experiment defied logic. Jack's body didn't resist threats. It adapted, evolved, thrived on them. He didn't fight the environment. He made it part of him, and that terrified everyone. Scene. The captain's briefing room. Captain Salira stood at the head of the long metallic table. The ship's senior officers sat in silence as Viral presented his report. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's engines. "Doctor," Salira said, her tone measured, "we have read your findings. Please summarize your conclusions." Varel folded his hands. Human physiology represents a form of biological adaptability that surpasses any known species. Their systems are not built for safety. They are built for survival. Every cell in their body adjusts to stress, danger, and damage. It is not a flaw. It is design. A murmur swept through the officers. One of the engineers spoke up, voice tight. "Designed by who? The humans themselves?" Varel shook his head. "Nature, evolution, chaos perhaps. Whatever the cause, they are the product of a world that tried to kill them every day, and failed." The room fell quiet again. Captain Salira's silver eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting humans are a threat?" Varel hesitated. "Not by intent, but by nature, yes. They are a paradox. Soft on the outside, indestructible within. Their laughter hides their danger. Their kindness masks their power." A communications officer whispered, "They smile at what should terrify them." Varel nodded slowly. "Yes, that is what makes them impossible to predict." Captain Salira turned toward the observation window, watching the stars drift past. "And the human? Jack Carter? Does he understand what he is?" Varel's answer was quiet. "I believe he does. He simply doesn't care." Scene. Engineering deck Jack sat cross-legged beneath a humming engine core, tools scattered around him. The heavy thrum of the reactor filled the air like a heartbeat. Despite everything, he looked peaceful. His hands were dirty, a smudge of grease on his cheek, and he hummed an old Earth song under his breath. Around him, a few alien engineers kept their distance, pretending to check readings from afar. "Relax," Jack said without looking up. "I don't bite." One of the younger technicians, a small insectoid named Fricks, clicked nervously. "You would melt metal," Jack grinned. "Only when I burp." The alien froze, unsure if it was a joke. Jack chuckled softly and returned to work. A few minutes later, the door opened and Varel entered, carrying a data pad. "Jack," he said, "we need to talk." Jack wiped his hands and stood. "Sure thing, Doc. What's up?" Varel glanced around, then lowered his voice. "The Council believes your biology poses potential risk. They are considering relocation." Jack frowned. "Relocation? You mean exile?" Varel didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. Jack exhaled slowly, eyes drifting to the glowing engine core beside him. "You know, Doc, I've worked with machines all my life. Engines, reactors, plasma drives. You learn something from them." Varel tilted his head. "What is that?" Jack smiled faintly. "Pressure makes them stronger. Push too little, they rust. Push too much, they explode. But the right amount? They hum like this." He tapped the reactor gently. "Same with humans. We're made from pressure. Our world burned, froze, drowned us, starved us, but we adapted. You see chaos. We see home." Varel studied him closely. "You are not angry?" Jack shrugged. "Nah, fear's normal. Every species fears what it doesn't understand. We just deal with it differently." "How differently?" Jack met his gaze. "We turn fear into progress. Always have." Varel blinked, processing that. "That explains much." Jack smiled again. "Doc, you ever wonder why humans explore space even when it tries to kill us? Why we jump into the void knowing we might not come back. Varel shook his head. I have wondered, yes. Jack looked out the viewport, the stars reflected in his eyes. Because danger doesn't stop us. It reminds us we're alive. For the first time, Varel had no words. He realized that the human strength wasn't the acid or the endurance or even the strange biology. It was their mind. Their refusal to break. Their calm acceptance that life was meant to be survived, not perfected. Later that night, Varel returned to his quarters, the hum of the ship following him like a ghost. He opened his log again, his hands trembling as he typed. Humans are not warriors because they seek conflict. They are warriors because the universe demanded it of them. They laugh in the face of storms, walk through fire, and call it experience. Their power is not in their weapons, but in their will. He paused, then added one more line. They do not fear death, because they've met it too many times and learned to keep walking. He sat back, exhaling slowly. The realization sank deep into his bones. The galaxy had misunderstood humans all along. They were not anomalies. They were survivors. Living proof that evolution, at its wildest, could create a creature that didn't just endure the impossible, it embraced it. Outside, through the viewport, he saw Jack walking along the corridor, hands in his pockets, humming softly as if nothing in the universe could touch him. And Varel finally understood the truth. The human didn't conquer fear. He carried it, tamed it, and smiled.